One day I was in a tent camp and I was distributing bottles of water. I mean, there were thousands of people, children were crying, dust in the air, and a woman grabs my arm and she says, "Hey, white lady, I don't want any water, but I need a job." That changed my whole life. When the earthquake happened, I didn't know it had happened. That evening, I felt a very strong call to go to Haiti. I parked my car, I walked straight in, past my cubicle into my boss's office, and I said, "I need to take my 2-week vacation to deploy to the Haiti earthquake." They actually said no. And I did something really crazy, Lisa. I quit. No safety plan, no evacuation, no contacts on the ground. I mean, any trained disaster responder would say, you are part of the problem. The second that the doors opened on the plane, people ran onto the plane and they were covered in dust and blood. I was absolutely petrified and I just thought, what in the world am I doing? Got all the courage that God granted me and put my backpack on and walked off the plane. But I was really scared. I wish I had a story of bravery to tell you, but I was petrified.
Julie Colombino Billingham is the founder and CEO of Rebuild Globally and fashion brand Dume. After the 2010 Haiti earthquake, she followed her calling for disaster relief and quit her job with no safety plan or resources to spend the next 3 years living in Port-au-Prince. Fueled by the strength of the Haitian people, her company evolved into a job creation hub and a fashion brand carried in major retailers like Nordstrom.
For a year, I lived in a tent. I would eat an avocado and drink a Coca-Cola every day because we didn't have enough food, ran out of money. I sold my house. So I went back to Haiti with $7,000 and that was gone real quickly. And a few weeks later, a woman says to me, "Hey, I met a woman and she's talking about job creation. I think the two of you should meet." And I walked to her. She had an orphanage where she had taken the children who had lost their parents in the earthquake. She had about 26 kids there. And she said to me, "How will I continue to feed all these children if I don't have a job?" I said, "I want to start a business." And she said she knew how to sew. And I said I had seen these products being made in South Africa and I think we can replicate them here. And she said, "Yeah, let's do it." I was like, let's do it. And then I told her, "But Jolene, I have to be honest with you, I'm not with a big organization and I don't have any money." You know what she said to me? "We're going to take back everything that the earthquake stole."
Oh, wow.
And we've taken back quite a bit.
Wow.
The problem is there's a 79% unemployment rate in Haiti. We literally had to create the business. Do you know that only 1% of Haitian youth go to university?
Wow.
1%. Our entire leadership team has been to university. They are the 1% and they run this company. And that's why it's successful today. It's hard to believe that, what started in a tent 16 years ago, now our handbags being sold in Nordstrom's. When we communicate honestly with each other and when we're willing to listen, it can literally rock your whole world.
I am here at Lake Worth, Florida, at a very special guest for our Business of Joy podcast. Welcome to the show, Julie Colombino Billingham.
Oh, thank you, Lisa.
Well, and we're going to have fun today because we have 3 dogs roaming around. So if you hear some barking, that's what we know is
we have a dog household. Yes.
I love that. I mean, we used to have 2 dogs ourselves, and they're adorable.
Thank you.
Well, good. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to get started with one of my favorite questions.
Okay.
Which is, I like to know what people's first jobs were. So before your first professional job.
Okay.
But, was it a babysitter? Did you?
No, this is an easy one.
Yeah.
My parents owned an Italian bakery and deli. And my dad insisted that me and my sisters, I have 2 sisters, that all 3 of us girls worked. So even when we were little, we have to step on a Pepsi crate so we could wash dishes, or we could sometimes shadow my mom at the cash register. So we all worked at a very young age. My parents really instilled a strong work ethic in me and my sisters.
Wow. And so hospitality, we're going to see how that thread, I think, kind of that in service of others, kind of maybe there's a pattern there.
I never thought about it that way, but quite possibly.
Maybe so. How old were you? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, I was probably 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you that there's a trend when I talk to people and leaders like yourself, is that these early jobs, I think we undervalue because so many Gen Zs, they don't have those opportunities. But at 10 years old, what other memories do you have of that?
Well, I just remember getting a car when I was 16 was really important. And so my dad said, "Well, you better get another job." And so when I was 15, I applied at the ravioli factory to be a hostess. And they didn't actually allow me to start till my 16th birthday. But it was really important to my dad that we all knew the value of money, that we all knew the value of hard work. Being an entrepreneur himself, he really knew what it was like. And then my mom working alongside of him, it was just a family business, a small family business.
Oh my God, I love hearing those stories.
Yeah.
And it's those lessons learned
And it's classic American dream. My father immigrated from Italy, first person in his family go to college. It really was amazing what he built.
Well, I think when I think about, you said sisters, and I think we talked about this before, but you're in the middle of three. So what did you learn from your big sister and little sister?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's so funny because now my big sister is a cop, but we should have known growing up because we always said she was the narc of the family. She would always tell on us if we were bad. And my little sister is so hilarious and so kind that we're all so different. My big sister being the lieutenant of the police department, my little sister having horses and training horses and training young people to ride them, and her love for animals. So we've all been so different, but we have an equal like love and respect for each other. So it's been fun with them.
Well, I'll tell you the funny story, which is, so I'm the youngest. My middle sister is Julie. And then my middle daughter is Julia. So there's something about Julia's in the middle.
Julie means youthful spirit.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I'm going to share that with my sister and my daughter. Well, that's awesome. Well, the other fun story that I had heard about that we talked about was your love of dancing.
Yes.
And I think there's two parts to the story that I would like to know about. Okay. The first is the fact that you danced, from a very young age. Mm-hmm. The second piece is there's the school inflection and that you still dance today. So there's like a whole journey of why dance matters. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, to be honest, I wasn't really that young when I started. So most, little girl, I think when I was a little girl, my mom had me in like the ballet classes. But then growing up, I was a theater major at an art school. So there was a dance department, but I was actually part of the musical theater department. So we did a little bit of dance. Mm-hmm. And then when I was 18 or 17 and I was getting my AA, I got my first degree from the local community college. I had to have 3 more credits. And there was a dance class available. And I just fell in love with it. And the company was called the Demetrius Klein Dance Company. And Demetrius saw something in me and had me train with like the baby ballet kids. So I would take ballet with like 4 and 5-year-olds to learn all the terms, to learn everything. And then I would dance with the company at night. And it just changed my whole life. And I danced professionally for almost 20 years. It was a career. And now today I dance for fun. And I'm grateful. I say, a bunch of geriatric old ladies that can barely get off the floor, but it is so good for the soul and the spirit. And the arts, I think, is very healing. And particularly, my life has been, complicated and lots of things happen. So the arts and dance always allows me like a way to express and feel peace.
Well, I don't even know where to start. There's so many things going through my head right now on that whole thing, because I was just thinking as an adult, I took ice skating for my PE at college, and I did compete as a child. But what I was just thinking about is you as a young adult having to take classes with 4 and 5-year-olds.
Very humbling.
I was going to say, how did that feel?
It was very, and I remember being frustrated because like, why are you speaking in French? Like, why doesn't everybody just talk English? And I was so frustrated. But I was so grateful for the opportunity to dance with the company. And I knew I was so far behind that I was just grateful that somebody saw that in me and was willing to give me a chance. So I actually loved it.
Wow, that's so cool. And then the inflection of where you wanted to go or your degree for college. We also have something in common there. Okay. So where was your original, where you thought you might go, and then you pivoted?
So pre-law. So I always thought, I'd be in political science or law and really try to affect change from a governmental level. And then I got into the Alvin Dance School in New York City, and my life changed again.
Well, wow. Again, wow. I think what I want to go back, because tell me again why you said you liked pre-law originally.
Social justice. Yeah. I've always kind of been a little bit of a humanitarian and really couldn't understand some of the things that happen to people in our history and that were happening currently and now that are happening today. And I wanted to be able to support the most vulnerable among us.
So I definitely see a thread there, because even though you didn't pursue the law, what you just said out loud is a perfect transition into really where you found your calling, right? Because that social justice and what you do today. So it's fascinating that even back then that was in you.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It's funny. I haven't really thought about it that way, but it's nice talking to you about it because it's true.
I find that these choices we make when we're young, because we don't know what we don't know, and you just have a fork in the road and you go this way. But then when you make that choice, sometimes either where you went or what you left behind, even though what you left behind, there's something there that you carry with you.
Yeah.
And clearly that is that calling of social justice, taking care of others. Clearly it's going to be great that now we get to share the huge story. I want to make sure all the listeners and viewers are here is about your story in Haiti.
Thank you.
And when I think about the story, I'll kind of fill in a little bit and then you can go take it from there. But obviously the 2010 earthquake.
Yeah.
And you were drawn there to go with little money in your pocket. You just got packed up and went. But before we get into the details, like, who are the people that were cheering for you, like, go, versus who are the people like, what the heck are you thinking?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure they were both.
There's a lot more of the latter.
Are you nuts?
Yeah, yes, I got a lot of that. I mean, the truth is I have my master's in nonprofit management and a certificate in disaster response. So I was trained for this work. However, the earthquake of 2010, I have never experienced anything like that. I mean, like, so Hurricane Katrina was atrocious, and I deployed to DC, work out of Red Cross home base for the first 90 days, and then I deployed to Katrina and worked there for about a year. And it was horrible, and you never want to judge people in time of disaster. But the earthquake was so extreme, you could not pass by a person in Haiti that wasn't extremely affected, that either lost a limb or a family member or a home or a business or all of the above. And so the extremity of that was so, I mean, there's just not even words for it. It was so hard. But it's really the flip of that kept me there. It was the courage of the Haitian people that kept me there. And,
wow.
You know,
and you were there 3 years?
Yeah, I lived there for 3 years, and we've had our company now and our nonprofit for 16.
Well, I think the gravity, there are no words. And my brother lived in Florida during the Katrina and was a big part of the medical side of the relief. And I just remember the stories that he told. And then just even in Louisiana, I mean, just all of it is just crazy. But when you think about, there's always those, in life, I always say there are people that have the balloons and sometimes the people that have hat pins for the balloons. So tell me about that tug of war that you had to have.
So the story is a little bit strange. When when the earthquake happened, I didn't know what had happened. That evening, I felt a very strong call to go to Haiti. It was really strange. I had no ties to Haiti. I didn't have any Haitian friends. It really didn't make any sense. I just couldn't sleep all night. And I just felt this, like, I need to go to Haiti. And the next morning I got up, I was going to my job at the United Way, and I heard on NPR, the National Public Radio's channel, about the earthquake in Haiti. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's why I felt this call to go to Haiti.
I got goosebumps. Oh my.
And I actually did too. And I've told the story 100 times, but it's because it was like the truth of it. And it was so real that I parked my car. I walked straight in, like past my cubicle into my boss's office. And I said, I need to take my 2-week vacation to deploy to the Haiti earthquake. And I just assumed, because it was the United Way, that it would be fine. But they actually said no.
Wow.
They said no. And I did something really crazy, Lisa. I said, I quit respectfully. I felt that, I mean, the call was so strong and I knew I had to be there that I did. I quit my job, and I was very lucky that within a few hours, they actually allowed me to take my vacation and go to Haiti. I did end up staying 3 years and leaving my job and doing all the things, but they were very kind in the end and let me go.
Right. Well, I think that just shows determination, commitment, and it was just that calling about.
Or a little crazy.
A little crazy. I mean, when I did the pandemic research, joy over fear, measuring joy in a pandemic, people said I was crazy.
Yes. It doesn't make sense to anybody except the person who it is their calling. You know, I think that, and everybody has one, and it's different for everyone. And as long as you follow it, I feel like, you know, there will be some bit of protection around you. I remember my dad just saying to me, I mean, after they begged me not to go, he just said, will you please wear gloves? And that's like one of the very few memories I have of 2010. And I was like, that's going to help me. Sure, Dad, I'll wear gloves.
Isn't it funny how those strange little one-liners, just that's
because it was so bizarre.
That is just wear gloves. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is so funny. Well, let's think about when you were there. There were so many stories, and I guess let me pause a minute. When you think about was there anybody like cheering you on to say you're going to go do this thing?
Yeah, I have some very good friends actually. So Bridget, who is the board chair of our nonprofit, she was very supportive. I mean, everybody was really scared. it was an extreme disaster, and I made some really crazy decisions. I decided not to go with the Red Cross or another agency. I decided to go on my own, and my parents could not understand why I made that decision. But there was something in my heart that told me to do it this way. And so I did go on my own. I'd met a couple people in Orlando where I lived at the time who were traveling as well. And it was kind of like the Wild West. You went to Miami Airport, and there was an airline called Vision Airways back in the day. You didn't need a ticket. You didn't have to pay for it. They didn't check baggage. You could have as much weight as you wanted. And it was just, you waited. And we waited about 2 days in the airport until our turn. And we were one of the only flights to land on the Port-au-Prince runway because it had been so damaged. And that story is even crazier. When we got off the plane, obviously there's no customs. It was just a sea of people.
Wow. Well, when you think about, and I know you've shared some of these stories, but I want to dig into it. But what really was that decision to say, you know what, I'm going to do it alone? Because there's got to be pros and cons.
Yeah.
Let's start with the pros. Like, what did you think?
Okay. Pros, like the autonomy of doing whatever you want,
Yeah,
and as a strong, independent woman, I like to do what I want to do, for sure. But there was a lot more cons, like no safety plan, no evacuation, no contacts on the ground. I mean, any trained disaster responder would say you are part of the problem. And I'm lucky that I didn't become part of the problem, with that decision that I made.
Remind me, when you first landed, I mean, you painted such a clear picture of how, it's sheer chaos.
No.
And what were those first moments did you ever doubt yourself? Like, what am I doing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Lisa, I was petrified.
Mm-hmm.
The second that the doors opened on the plane, people, like Americans who were there when the earthquake happened, because this was 10 days after the earthquake, ran onto the plane, and they were covered in dust and blood. And I was absolutely petrified. And I just thought, what in the world am I doing? And then I realized that the people getting on this plane were the lucky ones, mm-hmm. that there were millions of people left in Haiti without supplies, a lot of the, middle management and main relief people had already perished in the earthquake. So they really needed the support. So I just kind of got all the courage that God granted me and mm-hmm. put my backpack on and walked off the plane. But I was really scared. I wish I had a story of bravery to tell you, but I was petrified.
Well, but the story of bravery is you stepped off the plane.
No, thanks.
Seriously, right?
Yeah.
Because you could have changed your mind.
Yeah.
You could have, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we underestimate sometimes ourselves when we make those tough choices. It really was an act of courage just to get off the plane.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you didn't know what you didn't know what to even expect.
Yeah.
Wow.
The damage from an earthquake, the physical damage to human beings, the rubble that was everywhere. There were no roads left. It was wildly overwhelming. Yeah.
Well, and I think that from a business perspective, the way I like to think about that is that if somebody listening is having a bad day, not really. Because, you have to put it in perspective.
They used to ask me to join these CEO circles in America, and I would say, I'd go to them, and, they'd talk about very reasonable HR problems or things that were happening in the office. And I would sit there and think, what am I doing here? We haven't had running water in 3 days, and we haven't had power in the last 2 weeks. And it was like the issues weren't the same for an international business as it was for a domestic business. And we've circumnavigated all those issues, but early days it was it didn't feel like I belonged.
Oh, we gotta pause on that for a second, because you skated over that because you lived it, but I just want to process that because let's say in a retail business or restaurant business, electricity goes out or the water goes out, but you're pretty confident it's going to come back, right?
Yeah.
But in your world, if your production is in Haiti, that's not like a blip.
Right.
That's like a what?
Yeah.
So tell me more about just having to navigate. That is so unfamiliar to probably everybody listening, where those types of things we take for granted.
Okay, good point. I do forget that it's not normal for everyone.
Yeah.
So we would get city power for a couple hours a day, and then we would run off generators. And so it was, we couldn't run the sewing machines all at the same time, or the press machine and the click machine. We'd have to literally have a schedule for machinery so that, it wouldn't blow out the generator. To this day, now, fast forward 16 years, we are now a solar powered factory. And I made that decision because of the cost of fuel. And we didn't know back then that we were going to have the crisis that we're having right now, but it has protected the business. And so people were like, oh, is that an environmental decision? And as grateful as I am is that, solar is an excellent environmental decision, it was actually a business decision because the price of petrol, the inconsistency, and also the theft of generators
Oh my goodness,
we had about
yeah.
4 generators stolen
Wow.
in our time. So yeah, it definitely disrupts production, and it makes the cost of business more expensive. It makes us less competitive in the international market. So there was a lot of issues that we had to circumnavigate to get to the place we are today.
Yeah, and so I think anybody listening, if you have a problem that you need scale of magnitude, call Julie.
Happy to help.
She'll put that in perspective of whatever that food cost change might be, or a labor shortage. That's like, it seems so small when you think it. When I hear you speak like that, like stealing generators, that would be. I mean, I'm sure theft happens all the time in businesses, but at that magnitude of shutting down your business, it'd be like stealing a whole building, I guess, right? Or all the equipment. That's amazing. Well, let's dive into, there was a special woman that you met in the, and I know you've shared this story, but I want to tell the story because everybody needs to hear it. It's powerful. But I want to actually go deeper into what you've really learned from Jolena.
Okay. So the story, I'm actually going to start just a few steps back, because while I was in Haiti, I was there as a disaster responder, but it was being dripped on me that this wasn't the solution, the long-term solution for the poverty that had struck Haiti long before the earthquake had. And that was something that I wanted to be a part of, was figuring out the responsible way to act to ensure that, the poverty was addressed in some way. And one day I was in a tent camp and I was distributing bottles of water. I mean, there were thousands of people, children were crying, dust in the air. And a woman grabs my arm and she says, "Hey, white lady, I don't want any water, but I need a job." And I was like, whoa, yeah, you're right.
What did that, I mean, I know
I have chills again. That changed my whole life. This woman who I met in a tent camp 16 years ago, who I've never seen again, which is, the sad part of the story, changed my life and made my life so much better and so much more full, because she spread that wisdom and was willing to say, yeah, thanks for the water, but this is what I really need. And when we communicate honestly with each other and when we're willing to listen, it can literally rock your whole world.
I think, wow, what is going through my mind right now is making sure you really know what problem needs to be solved, right? Because water was an important sustain, something that everybody needed, but that's the problem with tragedy, is that people come in, they do stuff, and then they leave, and then there's no infrastructure.
That's right. And usually when they're giving things away, they're actually hurting the local economy, giving away rice and putting farmers out of business while they're there for a year or 2 or 3 years. But then what happens? So I was just learning all these little bits from the people of Haiti. That woman changed my life, and I could not stop talking about job creation. And a few weeks later, a woman says to me, "Hey, I met a woman, Jolena, in a camp, and she's talking about job creation. I think the two of you should meet." So within about 48 hours, we had a meeting on the books, and I walked to her. She had an orphanage where she had taken the children who had lost their parents in the earthquake. She had about 26 kids there. And she said to me, "The distributions of oil and rice are fewer and further between." This was probably 5 months after the earthquake. And she said, "How will I continue to feed all these children if I don't have a job?" She had lost her business in the earthquake. Her husband was a taxi driver. His car was crushed by rubble. So immediately, both income generating people in this household had no money and no way to make money. And so Jolene and I just talked, and I said, "I want to start a business." And she said she knew how to sew. And I said, I had seen these products being made in South Africa, and I think we can replicate them here. And she said, "Yeah, let's do it." I was like, "Let's do it." And then I told her, "But Jolene, I have to be honest with you. I'm not with a big organization, and I don't have any money." So, and she's like, "That's okay." You know what she said to me? "We're going to take back everything that the earthquake stole."
Oh, wow. Wow.
And we've taken back quite a bit.
Wow. Well, it is the fact that at that time, I mean, you grew up in a very different place, here, and, the Italian family working in the restaurants, and you saw what that plentiful looked like. But at that moment, it wasn't, because you had said you left everything behind.
I did.
And so you were at that same place, honestly.
I was living in a tent for a year. I lived in a tent. I would eat an avocado and drink a Coca-Cola, maybe, every day, because we didn't have enough food, ran out of money. I sold my house. It was 2010. 2010, I made $7,000 on that sale. So I went back to Haiti with $7,000. and that was gone real quickly. So yeah, it was a challenge. And you know, and I would say that I can't even imagine what the people experienced going through the earthquake, but the aftermath was pretty rough.
Yeah,
It was
well,
pretty rough on everybody.
well, it's that recreating, rebuilding, which I know is a big part, and that's a whole thing in the book. But well, when we think about a business owner, so first of all, that thread of building, you know, entrepreneurship from your family, obviously, if your parents, your dad, but then you took it one step further to like go get your MBA when you were going back and you were having to fly back and forth to get your MBA.
Yes, I did.
So what was that really underneath of it? There's probably the obvious answer of why'd you go get it?
Sure.
But there's got to be something deeper.
Well, so I had my master's in nonprofit management, and the first thing we did in Haiti was we started a charity, even though there was enough charities already, but education and job training were something that just wasn't like the job training and the business part, that there was something missing. This pathway from education to prosperity to jobs, something was missing. And because of my background in nonprofit management, I started a charity. It is called Rebuild Globally, and to this day, we train and educate young people. The problem is there's a 79% unemployment rate in Haiti. So we had to create a business, and that's where Deme came in, so that there was jobs to be had. These young people had somewhere to go. The women we were meeting in the communities wanted to work, wanted to support their families again. So we literally had to create the business.
Well, so that you created an ecosystem.
Yeah.
It wasn't even it's much bigger than just a business, because that circularity of you educate people, you teach them, but then where do they go after they learn?
Right.
They needed a business.
We absolutely had to create that part. And that is the part. And so they work together. You're right. It is an ecosystem. It's a hybrid social business model, but the two feed into each other, because today the leadership team of Haiti are the graduates of the Rebuild Globally program. Do you know that only 1% of Haitian youth go to university?
Wow.
1%. I mean, if you could imagine, your local community where only 1% is university educated, there's a lack of middle management because people aren't trained. And so our entire leadership team has been to university. They are the 1%, and they run this company. And that's why it's successful today.
So I think that is such an impressive track record to say the graduates are now running the company in Haiti. I want to ask you a question about transformation, because clearly that one woman that tugged on your arm transformed you
totally
in a completely different direction. But then think about a person either from one of the people on the floor where you manufacture the products. Who is the one person that you just are you can't believe the transformation that's happened having these opportunities?
Do you know how hard that is to answer? Because I mean, literally everybody has an incredible story. But you know what? I'm going to talk to you about Roni, because he's just so impressive. So Roni was, I think, 12 or 13 when I met him 16 years ago. And he was a little entrepreneur himself. He was a bracelet maker. And somebody told him, oh, there's a white lady that supports businesses in Haiti. You should go try to sell to her. So he made me a bracelet with my name on it, but he spelled it July, July. And I was so impressed with this initiative. I said, you know what? Why don't you make a bracelet for all of my colleagues and give them a little job. And then this kid was just so amazing that I said, I think this kid should be in the Rebuild Globally education program. And so, do you guys want to be in the education program?
I have a new friend.
And so Roni agreed to be in the education program, and he was a shining star. He graduated the education program, went to university, and now he is the highest paid, most senior leadership position at the factory.
Wow.
As the operations manager. He is our right-hand man. He, is in charge of a factory with 45 people. And just to watch him grow has been such a gift. He's always been magnificent, but to see him shine in this way, I just got back from Haiti about 3 days ago. And so to see him after a year and 9 months, and how he has grown in his confidence and his leadership. And I mean, it's magnificent.
Well, I think it ties back to, remember we were talking about first jobs? At 12 years old, he was making bracelets.
I know.
Right?
I know.
And so I always say, those people, the kids that, whether, they're on their own hustling to do bracelets or whatever, there is something to that, the fact that you're so focused on, young people of all ages, that will transform even more lives because those early opportunities. So you should have him have the younger kids make bracelets that are too young.
Oh my gosh, that's a good idea.
Well,
we should add that class into our education program.
Well, because those are the things that they're too young necessarily to work, probably.
But it's like an arts and crafts thing.
It's an arts and crafts thing. But then you could show them, because once you can say that you've earned money yourself at those early ages, 12 or 13, and you saw it in the restaurant, in the bakery. So it's so powerful. And I'm super passionate about helping young kids succeed because it's so hard today.
I know. And especially in the world today, I think, having that sense of responsibility as a young person is really powerful and really helps create the life that they're going to live as an adult.
Well, and the word you also used was confidence.
Yeah.
And in today's world, it's really difficult for, kids that are teenagers or young adults to have that confidence. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
So I think anything that can help boost confidence, and that's just in the US. I haven't really done as much globally with that, but I can only imagine Haiti is just amplified.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask one question. So I know you met your husband, who I know is on television, but I want to know, you met him in Haiti, but what does he see in you that maybe you forget, that like some characteristic?
Well, he used to call me a heart on legs.
Okay.
And that's how he used to describe me to everybody. He's very supportive of our work, and he loved, so he's all business, and he was in Haiti as a disaster responder. But we both landed 10 days after the earthquake. We lived in the same tent camp. That's how we met. And he was working on building a hotel, the first hotel out of containers, out of portable containers to get people out of tents. And he used me as his community liaison because he always believed in hearts and minds. He's a military man, and he always said, if you know the hearts and minds of the community in which you're in, you'll just be more successful, build community, build trust, and, have good relationships. And so he used me as his liaison because I always knew what was going on in the community. And so I think he saw a lot of determination in me and a lot of heart. And he also really helped support me because I would suffer with guilt. A lot of kids weren't eating, and if I was eating, I felt guilty. And he really helped say, you got to keep yourself strong, you got to keep yourself focused, and then you can carry on because the responsibility that you have.
Well, the impact, it's such a powerful statement to think about, that trade-off, right? If you're eating, but if you're not healthy, then your impact diminishes too. And so that was pretty insightful of him.
Yeah.
But I can see that blend of determination, heart, and community all in one. Thank you for sharing that. That makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
I want to talk now because I've written a book, you've written a book, and there's so many things about writing a book that are the discovery about yourself.
Oh my gosh.
And I always say, anybody wanting to write a book, you learn more about yourself than you do necessarily your topic.
Do it. Write a book.
Yes. But tell me, there was a choice you shared with me about the publisher where, you had so many stories and so much to tell, but you had to make a choice between accurate and a journey. And tell me about that, and how hard was that to make a decision?
Publishing a book, definitely. It was very cathartic. And I had been writing this book for about 15 years because it started out as the journal that I kept early days in Haiti. And I really thought I was going to be writing a textbook for social entrepreneurs about what not to do in the field because I was making so many mistakes. And I thought, if I can capture these and help somebody else not make them, less people will be affected negatively. And then as I got older and life happened and things happened as a woman, as a CEO, as all these different things, it became more personal. And then I started interviewing my colleagues to find out about their lives, because we were all growing up together, and all these things were happening to us. And so when I sent my book out to publishers, it got rejected the first 3 times, and I almost gave up. And then I was on a girls' weekend trip, and I read it to my friends, and they said, you should try one more time. And I did, and I went with a publisher, and they really wanted a story that was concise that people could follow. And so many things happen in everyone's lives in a short time frame that, to me, I wanted to say, okay, on June 10th, this happened, on April, this, and kind of go. And finally one day, and I wanted to be so honest about our experience that it was it felt like it was the integrity behind the book. But they were like, do you want the timeline to be specific, or do you want people to be able to follow your journey? And I finally said, I give up. I want them to follow the journey.
It's hard.
It is hard. It was a really tough decision to make.
It is hard because you lived it.
Yeah.
And you want to share all of those little micro moments. Yeah.
In order.
Yeah.
Like how it happens.
That's a determination, precision, right? Precision. Yeah. Well, is there a story, and this might be hard, but I know even when I was writing my book, there are definitely things that I couldn't include because otherwise it would have been way too long and hard to follow. But there's certain things I'm like, oh, maybe I should have put that in. Do you have any of those stories that now, because most authors, there's always something you're like, God, I wish I would have put something else in.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, I've never thought about that. And, a lot of the stories that they cut out were stories about like being sick in Haiti. And I would tell the stories about the vomiting and the other things that would happen. And they were like, okay, you've already told the story 3 times. I'm like, well, it happened about 300 times. So I'm like, so it belongs here. And they're like, no more stories about any bathroom episodes with you, Julie. So they cut out a lot of that stuff. But as far as like, I feel like if I could have, I would have interviewed even more of my colleagues. But at some point they said, okay, like we gotta cut down characters. We gotta, keep the show going. And so that would be my only thing I would say is that every single person I met in Haiti, whether it was a Haitian survivor or a Haitian artist or teacher or a foreign visitor or relief worker, everybody had a story. And and every single one had impacted our company or our charity in some way.
Well, maybe there's an opportunity that what I find is keep writing all of those stories down. I don't know if you still are, because it's when you start, I know it's like hard to even think about. The book just came out, but still collect those stories because who knows, a few years later, who knows, but those stories are really, that's why I do the show, because that's what people want to hear, stories. So keep writing them down.
And I will say that's kind of one of the biggest things is that because a lot of my colleagues only speak Creole, most people would never hear their stories if they didn't read our book because, we were able to translate it, of course, and their stories are so powerful. And sometimes you only see certain things in the news, so you have a certain perspective of Haitian people or what Haiti is really like. And it couldn't be further away from the truth.
Isn't that the case in so many things? If the media paints a certain picture and then it's not really even quite accurate. But now the other thing about the book, which I did have to dig long and hard to find this, but you had a different title for your book.
Yeah, nobody knows about. I don't know if anybody knows about that. Yes.
I can tell you after where I found it.
Okay, because, oh my gosh,
So what was the original title, and then why did you change it?
Okay, so the original title was called From Death to Dollars. And about 10 years ago, it was a vision I had about the book I wanted to write. And it wasn't about the death that happened the day of the earthquake. It was more about the death of community and respect and dignity and what was happening to the people of Haiti through foreign intervention. And the dollars was about the income coming into Haitian households by having jobs. And so I always thought this was the perfect name for the book. And it's what I pitched to the publishers, and when they, and then finally, we went back and forth for months, and they did not like the name, and then one day my editor said to me, she said, every time I've heard you say the name From Death to Dollars, you have had to give that explanation. And I said, yes, that's true. And it was like the front page of the book. She said, you gotta let it go because you need a title that doesn't need explanation. So now the new title is From Loss to Legacy: How a Fashion Business Rose from Haiti's
Rubble. And you have one right there.
I do have. Oh, it's my coffee holder, right? Yes, I do. This is our book.
Yes, and it's a great book. And Julie surprised me. I bought one of the handbags,
which you surprised me with. That was so kind.
And she surprised me back that the book was autographed. So definitely, everybody, we'll put all the links in there so you can buy it and then support Julie's business as well.
Thank you.
I did want to tell me just a little bit. We'll just spend a minute.
Sure.
And this just happens to be here, but I think that we'll make sure to have some good photos. But the intrinsic, I can't even say the word, the details.
Yes.
Let's say that.
I like
the details are just remarkable. So tell just briefly about what's so magical about these things that you're selling and making in Haiti.
Yeah, the products that we make now, we really wanted to tell a different story of Haiti, and we wanted the artistry and the talent of the Haitian people to shine through. It's hard to believe that, what started in a tent 16 years ago, now are handbags being sold in Nordstrom's, and some of the greatest department stores and boutiques in the US. But really that detail comes from the pannier baskets that women, I don't want to see what the pannier baskets that women used to wear, they use on their head is woven with palm fronds. And during COVID, the government mandated that we shut down we could only have 30% of our factory working at a time. And so some people went into the countryside, learned this technique of weaving, brought it back into the factory. And so we try to put a detailed of that woven bit on every bag, just to, again, tell this story of, beauty that comes from Haiti.
That is a great way. They are very practical in the sense that, they're bags of different sizes, but they truly are beautiful. And I'm eyeing this red one over there. I'm going to have to buy one of those.
So with every backpack sold this season, we are donating a pair of school shoes to a girl in Haiti that we also make school shoes at our factory. And we believe that every child deserves a pair of brand new leather school shoes. So with every backpack purchase, a child will get a pair of school shoes.
They're awesome. Well, I have two closing things that I want to end with. Okay. One is I have this tradition where previous guests actually write a question that then I ask the next guest. You're going to love this.
Okay.
It's actually a two-part question.
Okay.
So what brings you joy? And the second part of it, how do you always focus on time to invest in you? That's good.
Very good.
So what brings you joy? And then how do you find focus time for you?
Okay, well, what brings me joy, as a job creation activist, financial freedom, particularly for women, every time we hire a new person, I find immense joy in that. I mean, truly. That's why I feel so grateful for my job, because I do feel a lot of joy. And how I make time for myself, it kind of goes back to the beginning. I dance.
And you were at dance right before this
yes, I went
today.
Yes, I went.
I can vouch for the fact that it truly does happen. Well, and then the last tradition is that I'm going to have you write a question for my next guest.
Okay.
And it can be anything.
Oh my gosh. Do I get to know who your next guest is?
No.
Okay.
That takes all the fun.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
It was so fun. And thank you for opening your home. So while I was here in Florida, I could come talk to you. I could just talk to you for hours. And thank you so much.
No, thank you very much.
The Business of Joy. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm Lisa Miller. In growth, it doesn't come from more data. It comes from understanding people. It's translating human truth into the business outcomes. I work with leaders to close the gap between what consumers feel and what companies need to do. It's turning emotional insights into strategic advantages. It's the clarity that you need to drive growth. If that sounds interesting, let's connect. You can reach me at lisa@lwm-associates.com or on LinkedIn, Lisa W. Miller. And remember, joy is a choice we make and a business we build, so keep investing in joy.